This may be your first meeting that you get raped. Just making that up. Oh, see, you gotta stop saying that. No, really, you really do. Wes McKellison knows. He said, I'm telling you, Harvey, you're the mayor. I think it's a terrible thing you've got to do. I would advise you to stop. But you just say, well, that's up to you guys. Huh?
And I'm a lot older now, and it's like, I just feel how they're trying to blackmail the city into granting permission to them. That's just not right. Three lawsuits possibly that way are still sitting empty. I agree. I'm fine with that. I know. And when in good weather, when I'm out in my toy, I'm driving all over the city and that stuff. Oh well, time will tell.
It is 5:32 p.m. on October 29, 2024, Tuesday. We'll call the City Council special meeting to order. First order of business, we have a proclamation to recognize the Emmanuel United Methodist Church for the 175th anniversary. Would council come down to the podium with me and I will read it out? Would you like to come up and stand with us? Or?
Yes. My member of my church come with me as well?
Sure.
Yes.
All right. This is the City of Eastpointe proclamation recognizing the contributions of Emmanuel United Methodist Church. Whereas the Emmanuel United Methodist Church congregation was established in 1849 in a building on 9 Mile Road in Halfway, Michigan. Whereas in 1851, Emmanuel United Methodist Church relocated to a church building north of 10 Mile in Roseville, Michigan, and then to Gratiot Avenue in Eastpointe, Michigan. Whereas groundbreaking ceremonies for the present building took place on May 21st, 1933. The cornerstone was laid on July 2nd, 1933, and the building was dedicated on November 5th, 1933. Whereas in 1996, Peace UMC and Emmanuel UMC merged, uniting two Methodist communities into one. Whereas the pastor, Reverend Albert L. Rush, has served Eastpointe Church and community for more than 12 years. Whereas the church has made vast improvements to the building, which include an addition of a 13-room educational unit, a church parlor, an elevator, a parking lot expansion, and a complete remodeling of the lower level. Whereas the state of Michigan awarded Emmanuel United Methodist Church a historical marker recognizing it as a historical site, The marker was dedicated at a special service on Sunday, June 8th, 2003. On November 3rd, 2024, the Emmanuel United Methodist Church congregation will be celebrating 175 years of continuous ministry in the Eastpointe community. Now, therefore, the City Council in City of Eastpointe recognizes the remarkable contributions and dedicated service Emmanuel United Methodist Church has bestowed upon the Eastpointe community. Proclaimed this 29th day of October 2024.
We don't get one with the whole bunch.
No. Do you want to say any words?
No, we're just so excited. This church has meant so much to this community over so many different years. Went through 78 different pastors. We've had 18 people from our congregation go into the ministry. Oh. And we continually want to serve this community for another 175 more years. We are putting a time capsule in our ground at the end of November, and in 25 years, we're going to open up that time capsule. I will be here, I hope, and we'll just see where we are in 200 years here. But we're so thankful to be a part of this wonderful community, this family city, and I'm so glad to be. I'm the longest serving pastor of this church as well. So I'm really excited about everything that we're able to do and all that we continue to do to partner with the city of Eastpointe and as we continue to move forward. Thank you so very much for that wonderful honor. And you're all invited to a wonderful celebration on the 3rd. Thank you. Thank you.
You want to take a photo together?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, let's go ahead.
Jump in the photo with us.
Yes. Probably there are two pictures.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Oh.
What's the word right under there?
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, everyone. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Baker. Councilmember Curley.
Here.
Councilmember DeMonico.
Here.
Mayor Kleinfeld.
Here.
Councilmember Shadlick. Here.
Thank you, and we'll go to the first hearing of the public. The first hearing of the public is open. Would anyone wish to be heard? Go ahead.
This is automatically on right now, green light, I think. I'm usually not down here. Anyways, and don't be afraid to just kind of give me a wave when my 3 minutes is up, okay?
Will
Is
do.
it 3? Okay. You don't have 3, Joe. I don't have 3? Okay. Anyways, I was going to start off a little bit different, but my name is John Grunberg. But after the proclamation, I have to admit that my grandparents actually have a Bible that was presented to them back in 1951 when they joined that church. And I'm pretty sure I know this young lady in the front row a little bit too. Somewhat related. Anyways, here basically for some self-promotion. Obviously, if you haven't seen the signs around the district, there are 4 of us that are running together. This is Robert Roscoe. Darlene Whitby's out here in the audience as well too. I wanted to come up here mainly for the self-promotion is because we have the election coming up, obviously. But a big part of me is to dispel some of the things that have been being said about the school district. And I'm very disappointed about these things. First and foremost, there was a lawsuit, and it's been referenced by people in the district that was referenced in the East Sider today in the paper that I got. I want to tell everybody that all of these lawsuits have been investigated by our attorney, and the information has been provided to the board, and the board has decided there's no merit to them, and we have not taken any action against anybody in the district because of the investigations. I also want to remind people, If they say that's not independent because that person works for you, I want to remind them, I have been on the board long enough that when we had an investigation previously by our attorneys, it did result in the removal of a superintendent based upon the investigation. So don't try to act like it's not independent and that we have given it. Yes, there is one board member in particular, won't name them, but they are out there saying things about, oh, 4 lawsuits, 4 lawsuits. Okay, I could probably give you more information about it, but we can't talk about that kind of stuff, and I won't. Secondly, decline. The district is on a decline. Ooh, that's a nice word. As a matter of fact, our early learning center is packed. We started out with 6 classrooms, and we're up probably close to about 20 classrooms now. It is packed. It is at capacity. We need to add more classrooms. Our elementaries are filling up fuller and fuller. Yes, at middle school and at high school, it's lower enrollment right now, but as those students move up and as we continue to fill those seats, those are going to fill up as well. So as far as enrollment, not on a decline. We have somewhat leveled off right now, and it's going to be starting to increase, I'm quite sure. And all the projections are saying that as well. As far as test scores, because people want to complain about test scores, am I getting close?
Yeah, 10
Okay,
seconds.
I'll wrap. This will be the last thing I'll say. And as far as test scores are concerned, the trajectory is definitely in the right way. We've been implementing curriculum that has been having a positive effect on student achievement. So the test scores are going up. They're not going down. And then the last question, why are we running as a slate?
Oh, hold on. Thank you. Your time is up, but before the next speaker, I do want to remind people, I appreciate your comments. We don't allow anyone campaigning vote for or anything like that. So
What's that?
we don't allow anyone to campaign at the podium, so saying vote for or anything like that.
Oh,
So,
I didn't know that was protected.
which I thought might be the next thing, so
Oh, no. I'm just going
I
to,
appreciate that.
Robert Roscoe, Eastpointe resident, longtime resident, school board member. We just want to say that the school district is running stronger than it ever was, and that all trajectories are pointing up. And I just want to support what he was saying. And you have a strong school board. And without a strong school board, you have a weak city. And we're stronger than we ever were. Just want to let you guys know that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to be heard?
Good evening. My name is Christine Landino. I've lived here for the last 27 years. And I just want to speak about the marijuana dispensaries. I'm very much in favor of both the recreational and the medical. And if it wasn't for medical, my husband would probably be dead now because they had him on fentanyl, Neurontin, and Oxycontin all at the same time. My husband is smoking marijuana, yes, and he only takes 2 pills a day now of Percocet. And I call that an accomplishment. He's not dead from the drugs that the doctors were prescribing him. But I do want to say I did read a lot about people thinking that this is going to be like a Ray's Boom Boom or whatever. When you go to a dispensary, it's buy and fly. You go in, you show your ID, then you're allowed into the room where the marijuana is at. There's only allowed in that room however many bud tenders they have. If there's 4 bud tenders, then there can only be 4 clients in the room. And then you buy, you have to fly. There's no smoking in these dispensaries. The only thing you can do is buy. And then the people have to leave. So there's not going to be any Ray's Boom Boom with all these kids hanging around, drinking and throwing things around. Buy and fly. That's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Albert Rush, Eastpointe resident, and also pastor of Emmanuel United Methodist Church. As far as the recreational marijuana, I am against it as a city resident. I understand that people have a need for medical. I understand that that is important and to have access to that. But I like the idea because when I go in many different communities and travel around, Eastpointe does not have a dispensary. This is a marijuana place where marijuana is not being sold. It's a 4 square mile city. If you want it, you can go to 8 Mile. You can go to 10 Mile. You can go over the other side. It's not cut off access for it. And I like the idea. I understand that most places don't want to do medical because that's not where the money's at. The money is in the recreational. My concern is I really like us being known for something positive. I don't know how much money we get tax-based or whether that resolves it, but I like the idea that this is a place, and especially being from the Teen Drug Coalition, saying that this is a city that values making sure this is not accessible to kids in any particular form of way, because in the city of Eastpointe, we have no recreational distribution network. And I'm sure these places can go a mile east, a mile west, a mile south, a mile north, and they can have all the stuff they want. But isn't it nice and wonderful that Eastpointe is known for something special about being drug-free as much as possible? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard?
Hi, I'm attorney David Rudoy. I have a law firm in Royal Oak, Michigan, but I represent one of the applicants, Holistic Health Wayne. That was one of the companies granted the medical approval here in the city of Eastpointe. So first, I thank the city for taking on this issue of recreational marijuana. I think it's very important since the city of Eastpointe did such a good job as far as the medical licensing process. I've applied and dealt with licensing processes in cities throughout the state of Michigan. And I think the city of Eastpointe did it as well, if not better than anybody else. The cost of that was that it took a long time. And it was definitely a work-intensive process for the city. But because of that, I think the city took time and made the right decisions. But during the course of that process, obviously things have changed, and I've spoken to the council before about this. But essentially, during that period of time, the change was that medical marijuana is essentially no longer being produced. It has been relegated to such a small portion of the market that for a retail store, there's just not products to provide the medical patients anymore. So what's happened throughout the state of Michigan is they still accept medical patients, they still give discounts for those medical patients, but they're purchasing the recreational cannabis, recreational produced cannabis, because the issue is with the producers. It doesn't make sense for producers to produce something that's only going to be bought by 1/20th of the market or less. It's shrinking on a daily basis. And so, I think the city's making the right decision. I think the right way to do it, as I've stated before, is similar to cities like Ann Arbor and Ferndale, where the city's already gone through a proper process. I believe that process was done well, and that it can be relied on for granting the recreational licensure as well, based on the MRTMA, the law, and all the court cases interpreting that law. Great deference is being given to the city.
You have 30 seconds.
Oh, I apologize. And I guess what I would just say is, I think the city chose correctly in allowing 3 stores for a city this size. There's a lot of research out there. I'd be happy to send it to council that 10,000 people per retail store is about the right number in a city like Eastpointe with 32,000 residents. I think that's the right number, and there's been no further information that there's a need for more. I think let's license the first 3. Let's see what happens, and the city can take moves from that point.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Anyone else wish to be heard? Anyone else?
Hi, Jennifer Nicholas, Eastpointe resident. I'm kind of, in the middle on this issue here. My personal opinion as far as recreational marijuana is, I don't know, I don't think that it's really in line with the family town type of atmosphere. I agree that medical marijuana, there is a need for it. I'm not judgmental. I'd say, 80% of the people that I know and hang out with smoke marijuana recreationally. It's, not as big of a stigma as it used to be. My concern is, I guess, if you're able to give an explanation of what you're going to be deciding here. I know it's a little early in the meeting, but we only have one hearing of the public in this type of meeting, so that's why I thought I'd speak now. I realize that there are 3 medical marijuana licenses that have been granted. I feel that that is a reasonable amount of establishments for this small of a city. I'm kind of concerned with if you're going to be issuing separate recreational marijuana licenses to other establishments that would, I don't think we really need 4, 5, 6 establishments in this small of a city. That's my opinion. I'm hoping that you are able to kind of explain and clarify what your intentions are as far as moving forward with the city. I know that, as residents, we didn't really get a chance to vote on any of this other than back in 2018 when the state of Michigan decriminalized marijuana. As residents, we've never had this on the ballot, and I've never seen a survey as far as what people feel about it. So at this stage, I kind of feel that less is more. And again, hopefully you'll be able to address some of those questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard?
Yes, hi. My name is Michael Roth, 63-year resident of East Detroit, Eastpointe. Graduated from East Detroit High School in 1980. I really think this would be good for the city. Forget about the marijuana, blah, blah, blah. They're going to fix up their buildings. They're going to look nice. If you go to Roseville, the ones that they just built, they look beautiful. Crime, there's no crime around the buildings of the dispensaries because they have people. They also, I'm a proven fact that they give back to the community. Last year and this year, they've given to my East Detroit Tiger Cats organization, and that keeps me afloat because it's getting harder and harder. Not only get the money out of the parents, but cost has gone up. The field goes up, all that cost. You're going to smell marijuana wherever you go. I walk out of my house on Furwood sometimes, and I smell it, so someone's doing it. I work at the GM Tech Center now since February. I left the city and went there as private police. I pulled a gentleman over today, an engineer, because he ran a stop sign. Put the window down. I said, Lord. And, he showed me his card. I says, yeah, but that doesn't mean you can drive and smoke it too, but whatever. So you're going to smell it wherever you go. And, as far as kids, they got to be 21 just like to buy cigarettes or to buy liquor. They're not going to be able to get it. I mean, they're going to get it whether they want to or not. It's plain and simple. When I worked for the police department, my oldest son, I found it in his room. He wouldn't tell me where he got it, so I arrested him. My own son, made him go through the system. To this day, he's not, at least I don't think he's doing it anymore, but he might be. I don't know. He's 35 years old. But that's all I really wanted to say is that a lot of people are different than me, don't think it'll be good for the community, but at least as far as cleaning up their areas, it won't be all full of blight, and they will give back to the community, let alone taxes, but to other organizations or, even right back to the city, I'm assuming. Thank you for everything.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Mark Schmier. I'm representing Holistic Health. I can assure you that there is zero smoking on these dispensary properties. There's none of that. And it's important for me to say that here. It's also important for me to try to talk about the the process. It's been a few-year process. We have started to invest in the community. We've made promises to the community. And those promises are based on being able to get open and become profitable. And what we know is that when the market is saturated, nobody wins. When there's too many dispensaries, nobody wins, because we have to be able to, service the community, but not in a way that is going to diminish from what we're able to do down the road. And so 3 dispensaries in a community of this size is more than enough. And what I would ask is that if there is an inclination to consider more, is there any evidence that, you guys have that you've been able to discover that we haven't? Because the facts that we've been able to uncover is that the more dispensaries there are, the more stores that are going to go dark. I mean, if you look at Traverse City and Bay City and these other communities, they can't even sell their property to another dispensary owner once they're not successful. So it's not just the operator, but it's also the fact that more is not going to be better for the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard? Anyone else? Hearing none, the first hearing of the public is closed. And we'll move on to new business. Item A, recreational marijuana workshop discussion. I guess I'll start off by saying I know that council was provided with 3 proposals. I don't expect today to be a super lengthy discussion. I think for a detailed discussion, we probably need a more structured agenda to go through different aspects of the ordinances. So I think today we're really just going to be giving, my expectation is sort of some general direction to Mr. Albright to sort of get one ordinance that will be sort of a jumping off point that we'll probably go through eventually line by line. Did anyone want to open up with their thoughts on this?
No, I have a lot to say, but I don't want to. It's time, so I have a lot to say, but I don't want to start it right now.
Okay, well, I guess I'll start off. I know that in the ordinances, I believe I don't know if it was all 3. I think it was all 3 that the number of applications might have been either left blank or not defined. I think for this, at this point, I would say 3. Were you looking for direction on that?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I did intentionally leave all of the number because I hadn't received any guidance from council. Again, that's something that should be discussed amongst all the members during an open meeting. And so this would be an appropriate time. Mayor, if I could just, I like the fact that you touched on the fact that this should be more structured. I know this is a general agenda just to get the discussion started, but the council does have 3 proposals before it. And also there's a policy attached to the first 2. There's proposal number 1 with also a policy number 1. So each of the proposals should be discussed individually and also then the policy that's attendant with them. Another topic of discussion, and this doesn't necessarily have to be at this evening's meeting, but the council should make a decision as to zoning. The council has a zoning map which has been prepared. Buffer and setback should be decided. Again, that doesn't necessarily have to happen at this evening's meeting, but the council should make a decision as to the proper setbacks from schools and daycare centers and public parks, among other areas that the council may want to consider for setback purposes. So I think those, whether the council wants to do that, just establish tonight when each of those various topics are going to be discussed, that would probably be a good idea, and then just go from there.
Okay. And my understanding is proposal 1 is most like what we have implemented for medical?
That's correct.
All right, well, I guess to the first issue, the number of 3, does anyone have an alternate proposal or objection to that?
Well, let me start. When council was first approached for marijuana, we opted out of the recreational marijuana, if you recall, and accepted medical. And at that point in time, the council decided for 3, not 2, not 5 or 6, but 3 medical establishments, correct so far? And, well, I'm pretty straightforward. I don't think there should be more than 3 establishments. And we've given a medical marijuana to 3 different agencies. And I don't know, Kim would have to set me straight on this. There's one of the 3 is pretty, they didn't buy the property or?
That is correct, and I think Mr. Blum has more details on the finances, whether the taxes were paid, things like that. But in addition, that facility has not bought the property, and there's now a daycare center directly across the side street. So that would probably be, that would be a problem.
Well, yeah, that's another subject. If they were awarded a license for medical marijuana, and they found a place to have it, and then in the meantime, a daycare center moved in, how does that, I guess the question would be, how does that affect their license? Now they're close to a daycare center. Whose fault is that? I mean, who would have to take the responsibility that the thing moved right next to them? I mean, does that default their license even though they got it in the right business?
Mr. Mayor, if I may?
Oh, go ahead.
So each of the 3 has deadlines that have to be met based on our normal process for the Planning Commission for special land use approval and site plan approval. So if that deadline expires, yes, they would be done. I don't know, I think that's a legal question. There are several very serious administrative logistical topics that our former ordinance did not address, such as something like this.
No.
So if council chooses to go with the committee scoring version and limit the number of applicants or number of facilities versus a zoning ordinance-based that does not have limitation, does not require competition, we definitely have some input we would like to add on the missing pieces from the former ordinance.
Okay, if I can continue. I've said all along, it's my belief that, and I'm going to use, Kim, I'm going to use the 3, even though we're not sure about the 3rd one. I'm of the belief that there should only be 3, and I think that the folks who were awarded the medical marijuana should be able to get that license. Now, you had brought something up this afternoon that we can't do that. We can't just merely hand a license out, is that?
Yeah, it's my understanding that if you, as a council, specify a number of licenses, it has to go through a competitive process. And just handing it out to somebody who got the medical, I think violates the law. I mean, obviously, that's an attorney question. But as far as the 3 that do have licenses, as Ms. Homan mentioned, one of them up at 10 and Gratiot area, I mean, we're approaching the 2-year mark on the licenses. The one up in the 10 and Gratiot area hasn't even bought the property, let alone do anything with it. The one at the south end of Gratiot, their properties are on the tax foreclosure list. They have not been paying their taxes. They haven't done anything else to the property. And the one at 8 and Kelly also is on the tax foreclosure list and hasn't done anything with the property. So I'm not sure, my opinion, rewarding someone who hasn't followed through on their promise is the right thing to do. And again, I'm not sure that it's legal.
So what I'd like to do, I know that what is on our agenda tonight is discussion of recreational licenses. I'd like to limit our so for tonight, our discussion on that, if there are issues with the existing licenses and action that council needs to take regarding them, that might be a separate agenda item that administration should, identifying any problems that we might not be aware of or things that were difficult to follow in the first ordinance. Any criteria for scoring that either didn't make sense or didn't seem helpful, or criteria that was missing that administration realized, like, hey, this is something we want to consider, but it's not outlined in our ordinance. So I think that would be a good jumping off part or jumping off point to fashion this ordinance to be, I mean, I'd like to learn from our past one, whatever mistakes we made there, that we don't do again in the new one.
Mr. Mayor, if I may,
Sure.
I have a multi-page list, and these are all my notes.
Well,
Happy to do so.
yeah, and Mariah, if you can work with anyone who was involved and sort of gather all that feedback. Did you have? Sorry, I thought I heard you say something.
No, just be helpful to have had that information at the time.
Councilman Curley, I'm sorry, did you have?
Well, we went through this one time before where you said I was out of, well, you didn't say I was out of order, but it's not the time to talk about it. So now you're limiting our conversation tonight, and I think any council member that has questions, it does say workshop, but I just don't know, I'm just not sure that, I mean, I got a lot of questions, so I guess I got to put a question mark after the question because I don't know if you would call that out of order or not.
No, so I guess my response really, and I'm not criticizing, but it's a little bit in response to Mr. Blum, because I didn't want to go into the status or I guess as if we were going to make decisions on what was going on with those other licenses. One, I'm not sure that we would address those problems at the council level, but I think in terms of discussing them to know what we do with this ordinance, I think it makes sense. So go ahead. I don't mean to limit you on your questions.
No, I'll give the other council members an opportunity to talk. Then I'll come back.
Mr. Mayor, I guess back to then the amount of licenses like you and Councilman Curley suggested, I was going to potentially suggest a number slightly higher than 3, just so that, well, a couple reasons. One, so that if we suggest 3, the committee might feel like there's a weight on them to pick the 3 that have already been selected for the other 3. If it was like 5 or 6, there'd be a little more leeway. And then the higher you go, really, I think the zoning is really what's going to prevent too many from opening up. Like people are saying, you know, some at hearing of the public, they need to be 1,000 feet away from each other. So you just get into a practical situation. And I assume, unless I'm wrong about this, Mr. Albright, be like the first applicant, you know, the highest scoring one, they're selected. If the second highest, I guess, was in 1,000 feet of their proposed building, then I guess they wouldn't be able to continue.
That's correct.
And we could go on from there. I was going to suggest a long time ago, and now it's basically a moot point, that if you were open and operating, you'd get like extra points in the application, but that's clearly a moot point at this point. But I guess I just wanted to at least respond to the number of licenses, since we brought that up, and maybe I'll leave it at that for now so that we're maybe not discussing too many different things all at once.
Yeah, well, Mr. Mayor, they put a map in front of us. So obviously somebody from the administration wants to talk about that, and that might be some discussion about the number that we're talking about that would be eligible to get a license. Is that true? Well, I just want to know why we got the map if we're not going to talk about it.
So AEW has provided a zoning map, which is presented here in the front of council as well. So all of council members, mayor and council members have a map, basically of the overlay, which shows our current zoning ordinance, and then the black spots are the protected uses, which would be the daycares, the schools, and items like that. So I know we've had a conversation previously, and I had shared an option that other communities have taken on as well, that if the council is comfortable with a recreational facility, that there is an option to kind of allow consumerism to take over. And so similar to other businesses, you would regulate that business through zoning, which means if you restrict it to an MU3, which is the mixed use properties, which are purple here on the map, and council has the ability to set their restrictions by the footage, you could allow essentially consumerism in the market and the properties that they own to kind of dictate where those facilities end up.
So I guess just to make sure we kind of hit one thing out, or knock one thing out at a time, in terms of the number, Mr. DeMonico was suggesting more than 3. I would be okay with going up to 4. I don't know if I would be inclined to go any higher than that. But at least that way, there's not an equal number of licenses to the amount of medical marijuana, just so there's not any appearance that it's a foregone conclusion. Mr. Albright.
And Mayor, would that be, the numbers that we're talking about, is this just unique to retailers and not the other types of licenses? Because there are variant types of licenses as well.
Oh, yes. I guess first I would say I was only entertaining passing or voting for an ordinance that would be for retail. Does anyone else feel differently than that?
No, I was going to say.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Councilman.
Excuse me. Why we, excuse me, why we decided 3 medical licenses when we did it, I don't know. I don't remember. Why didn't we say 5? Why did we say 2? The only problem, Councilman Cardy, is having more than 3 is that, well, my wish is that the people who've got the medical marijuana would get one of the recreational licenses. But we were 5.1 square miles, and having more than 3, you mentioned 5 or 6. Wow. That's my personal opinion. I guess a lot of the decisions we're going to make on this whole marijuana thing is probably going to be based upon personal preferences and personal beliefs, and not necessarily all the paperwork that we got in our packet today. Administration's got to speak to this tonight too, but tell us what they're thinking about. But I would stay with 3, but you know, we're going to vote on it eventually, so whoever gets 3 votes or more, that's the way it's going to be. I understand that. That's okay. That's the way we do business. But the administration seemed excited about taking a map and dividing it up into I don't know how many sections. So maybe I could convince somebody from the administration to speak tonight.
Well, Councilwoman Shadley, can I ask to the number issue?
As to the number, I agree with 3.
Okay.
I
You
do
agree
have a
with
little
who?
question, though. I agree with 3.
Oh.
3.
Okay. I guess at this point, I mean, I'm okay with 3 or 4. We're missing a council person tonight. I suppose we could either leave that blank in the next version or just ask you to put in 3 for now. And then we can revisit that issue later.
I can insert 3 with an asterisk saying to be decided at a regular meeting or something like that.
Yeah, I'd like to discuss it with Councilman Baker here, because I'm sort of on the edge, and if Councilman Baker wants more, then, you know, we should have a discussion with everyone present. Okay. Moving on to the zoning issue that Councilman Curley's talking about. I guess first, to his question, does administration have a feeling or a recommendation at this point on if they would want it to be done through zoning as Ms. Walton, you described the, sort of the new map, or one of the maps was indicating.
Mayor, if we could back up for just a moment, is there a consensus as to limiting the number 3 to just allowing a retailer and the other types of licenses? The council's not interested in that?
Well, when you say other types of, are you talking about growing and, no, let's just, no.
I think we're all in agreement. No.
Well, I was going to suggest we just left it as before. We did have 2 testing and 2 transport licenses, but nobody even applied for them. But I guess I don't care one way or the other then. Seems like everyone else wants to just go 2-0 then on those. I guess I'm just pointing that out because that's what we had before, just to compare from before.
Well, those other facilities under that, do they have to be limited to medical then? Like a transport, I don't know.
No.
Because they're not selling, so I think those licenses would still exist.
But I guess they'd only be able to handle medical marijuana.
I'm not sure.
They what? I couldn't hear what she said. What is-
I think she was just saying all were available, nobody applied for
Oh, yeah, that's-
either of them, right?
No, I think the question was if someone applied for a transporter license under the medical marijuana ordinance that the city currently has in effect, would that also then, just by default, allow them, I mean, the marijuana that's going to the retail or dispensary, you know, it's marijuana. Now, whether it's sold for purposes for medical marijuana purposes or for retail purposes, it's one and the same. So I don't know if there actually is a difference. I know that there might be a couple people in the audience that could address that, just people that have had experience with that. If either of you guys know?
Yeah, my belief is that they're, sorry.
Thanks, Dave.
So they are still currently 2 separate state licenses. I'm trying to remember in the ordinance that you wrote, Mr. Albright, but I believe that you specified that was a medical marijuana license, and therefore like a medical marijuana transporter license. So generally, transporters have to get licensed both under the Medical Act as well as the Recreational Act, and they're still currently 2 separate licenses. There is talks that they're going to combine the 2 laws in the future because of medical kind of dwindling. People just are not renewing the licenses. But at this time, my belief, based on my reading of your ordinance, would be that they would only be able to test and transport medical marijuana.
Thank you for that. And Mayor, if I could add too, if the city decided to just go with 3 retail, and I'm pulling the number just because we have a general consensus on 3 retail licenses, micro businesses and compliance facilities, those could always be added at a later date.
Okay.
So if there was a need in the community for a particular type of license, the ordinance could always be amended to allow for a certain number of licenses in that particular category.
Mr. Mayor, if I may,
Yes.
there is very recent legislation in Lansing that is going to eliminate the medical marijuana licensing process. So it looks like it's just going to be one. It's tie-barred, so no idea what's going to happen, but it is up there to just close out that whole chapter.
Kim, have you talked to anyone in Lansing as far as a timeline on when that, and is there support for it actually passing?
I don't know.
Thank you.
I guess if we're just doing a quick straw poll, I'd say just leave the 2 and 2 for each of those.
Transport and testing. That's okay with me. I just don't want growing, to be honest.
Yeah, that was part of, I think, well, Planning Commission and, well, obviously, we've been discussing this for like 7 years. We somehow came to the point of 2 and 2 and left out growing and processing on purpose for, I mean, mostly, right, zoning. I'd say if I could sum it up, zoning issues, since we don't really have a lot of space in the city, commercial space. So Could be another couple vacant buildings if anybody did want to do testing or transport, but.
Okay. How do you feel, Councilman Curley, about testing and transport?
I think you really want me to say what my gut's telling me right now?
I was going to go down the line to get a straw poll.
My gut's saying, why the hell are we even discussing, other than opening up a recreational store, if you will? Why we all of a sudden, I don't know why we're talking about it, because that's not,
Councilman, it's part of the
well,
proposed ordinance.
I know, Councilor DeMonico, I'm getting too excited, because my biggest thing right now, Mayor, bottom line is, what, is that a gun?
No.
What did he do?
Just someone dropped something, hit some metal. I think that was all.
Okay. I came here tonight not only to talk to y'all, the council people and the mayor, I came here to find out what the administration is suggesting, because as far as I'm concerned, the people that they had, and they did somebody said that they did such a good job. I don't know why we just don't say, administration, carry on, tell us what you need and what you think, but council can't handle all these details. Can't do that. They have 3 people on their committee. If they want to meet at 2:00 on a Wednesday afternoon, they can do it. If you call us, you have the council do it, you got to have a majority, at least 3 people sitting there going through paperwork, and that's not going to work. So I can't do it. You're the mayor. You could direct the city manager to get 3 people and do the job.
Well, I don't know that I could do that, but I think, I think essentially that's what we're here doing. The administration handled the previous licenses under the ordinance that we created, so we are creating another one so that they can go on and do the same thing with the recreational.
You're right.
So, I think we have to go through this before administration can do anything. I guess I wanted to go down the line straw poll. I'm fine with the 2 and 2. I could foresee a recreational facility opening that also wants to do testing there or something like that. And I guess I don't want to rule that out after thinking about it. Councilwoman Pashadlik?
Yes, I agree. I agree with the 2 and 2 for the testing and transport.
Okay. Rich, did that
Mr.
clarify that?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, you cannot combine the uses in one location. Transport would have to be separate and safety would have to be separate.
Okay. All right, uses, number, basically about 3 with an asterisk. And then in terms of, was the next thing that you needed clarification on zoning? Our discussion on that?
We should discuss, yes, Mayor, zoning as far as buffer requirements, any setbacks from schools, parks, daycare facilities, churches, of course, yes. So I think it's certainly an item for discussion this evening.
Would, Councilwoman Pashadlik?
Yeah, I was going to question, so I'm looking at the zoning map that we received today here. It's the zoned multi-use 3 is the one that would potentially be for the facilities, is that correct?
Yes,
Somebody could answer that?
yes.
Okay.
If I may, it's actually light industrial also. Our new zoning ordinance allows MU3 and light industrial.
So the green and the purple on this map, is that correct then?
Yes.
So it's both? Okay.
And I guess I had one quick question about these maps. I think this new map, I think the one that's printed here and the one we're looking at is missing parks. None of the parks are identified.
Mr. Mayor, if I may?
Yes.
That is a decision. I believe the recreational, the state laws for recreational protect daycares and schools. So it would be up to council to decide the protection of churches, parks, and things like that. So the black on this new map are listing all the schools and daycare and churches. Parks, because we knew the council knew exactly where the parks were, we did not include this at that time until council makes that decision.
Are there any other, I guess, well, I just didn't know what this map was about. Are there other differences in the zoning, or does the MU3 and light industrial line up with what we had before for medical?
I don't think it lines up the same for like the suggestion of doing it by the zoning. If I'm incorrect, please correct me, but I'm just looking at, for example, what would be the Bank of America, or a closed Bank of America location. If we did it by zoning, would be allowed, but isn't permitted with the setbacks outlined in medical. Is that correct?
Sorry.
What I was going to suggest is maybe having a map provided to council that shows MU3 and L1, just that, like, if we designated that, this is where it would be allowed, and then maybe another map showing what zones would be excluded under the medical, so we can see what the difference is just going by the setbacks. Does that make sense?
Are you tired of hearing from me?
Go ahead.
We had that map in the previous, during the medical, and our planner at the time put together a map that put basically a circle to show what would and would not be eligible. Unfortunately, planners, the standard practice is to do corner egress, driveway egress, corner of the street to corner of the next property. This council had residential, for instance, from front door out to the center line and down to the center line. GIS cannot track that, so it was very difficult to do that. So we ended up requiring that all the applicants provided a survey from a certified surveyor that AEW would review to verify that it was accurate, that showed that their property was sufficiently distant from the protected uses. I mean, we could do something sort of, but it would not be set in stone. It would not, I would not want to promote it as, gospel.
So I guess in that case, I would ask for an illustration that's based on corner to corner, not, and I guess that might be a change that we make in the upcoming ordinance. Is that listed in here, that has to be not from the corner of the property?
It's like 50 feet right angles, I think, to residential. Yeah. Somewhere.
Yeah, that seems like something we might want to correct or word differently, because that does seem very difficult to follow.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I think maybe at least I think what would be very helpful between these two, why don't we just put an asterisk on the map about that specific rule. Don't blend that into the map since you got to go parcel by parcel, but just the differences in the zoning. Because I think that the opposite's true here too with one of the medical marijuana licenses we gave out in MU1. So now with this new map, that would not be an eligible recreational marijuana location at like 8 and Kelly. So if we can show the difference, between the two like that, just say we haven't taken into account the 50-foot residential buffer. These are the differences. I think that would be a helpful.
Okay, I'm happy to go home, Mr. Mayor. That parcel, that actually needs to be fixed on the zoning map because they combined all three parcels and it was not updated that all of those would be MU3. So actually that corner, because the parcels are now combined, should be totally MU3.
Okay, well, forget a specific example. I guess I'm just, at least for the moment. But does that map, I think that's what you were asking for, I guess, a minute ago.
Can you explain it one more time?
So our current map, we do, well, I guess we must do MU1 currently. I guess I don't remember, I guess, take our current eligible properties for medical marijuana, and just the difference from that to this map, there's clearly gotta be a lot of differences, because if we're only talking MU3 and light industrial, with this new map, basically all of Kelly is zoned out. Just to show that difference from what we have now until, I guess, what was just proposed to us here. Right, it's very hard to, well, as we are seeing right now, it's very hard to understand what that would look like. Sure, okay, yeah, except, other than 9 and Kelly, but anything on, yeah, on Kelly, sure. Yeah, 10 Kelly.
So I guess I'm looking at the maps. So I didn't think any of these maps showed currently where properties are allowed for medical. Am I misreading this map? Okay.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's just the regular zoning.
I guess for the zoning conversation, is that something administration's gonna have recommendations of? It sounds like part of the issue with the application process was identifying parcels that were eligible. Is that correct?
If I may note, we're clear on the zoning. We no longer have the medical on here because of the zoning ordinance change. On this, zoning ordinance and zoning map change in the past year. So, I mean, we could overlay the medical, but it's kind of a moot point at this point. So anything that is in the purple or the green would be an eligible property at this point. When we, well, I'll leave it at that.
Ms. Holman, can you confirm, I believe all the applicants that received a medical license are in MU3, correct?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, so what, it seems to me it makes sense to, I guess, identify what zoning we would allow it in. What is council looking for?
I guess, I thought we were just looking for a map that shows what we've already determined for medical to be eligible. And then this is a new idea, right? Like,
Yeah.
so what parcels are now becoming not eligible? Or what new ones are eligible, if there's that too? Since we've discussed it for so long, we'd all of a sudden not know which parcel, well, at least from looking at these maps. There is a map on our website that seems to indicate potentially eligible, we called it medical marijuana properties, all the green here. You know, there's some up and down Kelly, so those would all go away with this new, like, what's
Okay.
that difference?
So that, yes, I think that's what we would like to see, is a map showing us what was eligible or is eligible under the medical, and then just a separate map, what would be eligible if we did it by changing the zones. I think then we can hold them side by side and take a look at them. I think it's hard to look at what we have in front of us and see what the difference is.
Mayor, if I may?
Yes.
Just a clarifying question. So the current zoning ordinance regulates the location of marijuana facilities in light industrial and MU3. We updated the zoning ordinance, so it could have been permitted in other areas, but are we looking at potentially amending that prior to creating this ordinance? And I don't know, Rich, how that would work if listing a change in the zoning permission for recreational can be in this, or if we would have to look into amending the zoning
Yes.
ordinance to add additional locations that recreational could be located.
Yes, the ordinance and the map would have to be amended and go through that whole procedural process.
Planning Commission then before council for approval.
So just for clarification, is council looking to change the zoning ordinance to expand just from light industrial and MU3, or are we okay with it being, following the current zoning ordinance and remaining in those locations?
So I would say I'm not looking at changing the zoning locations, but I think with these, and Rich, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we could use them as an outline to determine where we would allow them and just create a separate district and not touch necessarily zoning, just use that as a guiding map and then say these are districts we allow them. I believe with medical that was permitted, you could just identify where they would be allowed in the city. I'm sorry?
If I may, Mr. Mayor, it was by zoning. It was not, property by property. So it was specific to certain zoning. So again, the zoning ordinance and the map would have to be amended in total to allow it in different locations.
I see why this is even more confusing now. Because, okay, so we changed the zoning ordinance, which kind of retroactively changed everything. That's why this doesn't make really any, not retroactively, but when we changed the, so right here, I did look at, so the zoning ordinance does say for provisioning MU3, regional mixed use, and light industrial, but that meant something different before we just changed the zoning. So we did medical, changed the zoning ordinance, and now, which is different from when everybody applied for medical too, and now it's different. But I think we still would like to know that difference, I guess. But yes, that is extremely confusing, if that makes any more sense to everybody.
So I guess with that, I guess maybe just getting updated information, I'm looking at where, I guess we kind of have it now in front of us. Council might want to think about that or ask any questions related to that. Maybe we shouldn't designate zoning tonight in the ordinance. Well, in the proposed, yeah, I think. Well, Rich, were you looking for more direction regarding that?
I didn't know if the council possibly wanted to expand what's already in the new zoning ordinance.
Okay.
And if so, if that's the direction that the council gives, then of course for any zoning amendment, it would go to the planning commission for a review and a recommendation then to the city council.
And I think too, one of the things that we need more specifics on are the buffer zones in terms of how far council would like from protected uses. So like schools, churches, parks, what is the distance that council is comfortable with so that that can be built into the language as well?
Yeah, under state law for schools, it's 1,000 feet, but the municipality, the city of Eastpointe, has the discretion to lessen that. And of course, I know churches come into the mix as well, parks, daycare facilities.
Does anyone have an objection to us essentially going with what we already have in the recreational in terms of setbacks? Medical, thank you.
So I was gonna jump in.
Oh,
Yes.
sorry.
Carry that over to, so that was 1,000 feet for,
No. 1,000 feet between establishments, 500 feet from any of the protected, which is schools, parks, childcare centers, religious assemblies. And then the 50-foot thing from residential with those right angle sort of thing we called it before. So that's all in the green if you're looking at the color packet, but I think, yeah, if we all agreed on that, actually, that was only one of two things I was going to ask tonight, and then we talked about freestanding buildings before was my only other question, I think, in the zoning ordinance, but I think if we didn't change anything tonight, Rich, we're just gonna leave it alone, I guess, right?
Kim, does city administration want to address the topic of freestanding buildings?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, if I may?
Sure.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
So freestanding buildings, we know what the intent of planning and the planning commission and city council was. However, in the planning world and architectural world, a freestanding building can be literally touching, but as long as you can take down one with the other still standing, it's still considered a freestanding. So one of the things Rich did do in both his 1 and 2, and then I pulled into 3, was a more detailed definition that they cannot share common walls. I mean, we could probably even go into more detail, but the intent was, again, some of the things in the previous ordinance, the intent didn't match the industry standards.
Okay. Any comments on that?
I just had it on my list because when we talked about it, I didn't think it was necessarily a make or break thing for me. I thought just not differentiating between freestanding buildings and non-freestanding buildings was fine with me.
Okay.
That was the only reason I was going to bring it up.
I mean, I'm fine with that too. Does anyone feel differently?
No, I'm good with it.
As it stands now, MU3 and LI, light industrial, that's the current standard, and I guess I wouldn't give a direction to change that tonight.
Mr. Mayor, if I may?
Go ahead.
We put together a timeline, trying to fast track this without trying to change the zoning map and zoning ordinance, which should take a couple of months. But if we got this ordinance, again, fast tracking, got the first and second reading and finalized in January, it still looks like the earliest builds would be in early 2026. So unless council has a real desire to add on 2 or 3 months, and we're crunching it. So, open it up in January, have the applications due in May, which gives applicants enough time to try and procure property ownership. And then again, giving the department heads, there are things that have to be done in the review. So it's more of a timing issue than anything else.
Any comments?
Clarification quick. Are you saying we need more time to edit the zoning ordinance than the facilities ordinance? Right, like there's the 2 different ordinances? Is that what you're saying, right?
Yes, because the zoning map would require public hearings back in front of the planning commission, and then the first and second reading. And as it appears right now, this would just be going to council for first and second reading.
Sure, okay. So it adds 1 planning commission public hearing.
Did you have something?
Both ordinances will have a
okay.
first and second hearing.
I mean, I'm okay from today going forward with just not touching the zoning issue. And then I'll probably want a little time to look a little bit more at the maps. Did you have something else that you wanted to add?
Yes, 2 clarifying questions. So is council supportive of moving forward with the administrative committee with the same positions as before? I think it was city manager or their designee, public safety, their designee, and then building official or their designee. I just want to make sure moving forward and bring something finalized that everyone's on the same page, or if there's a recommendation for a different position on the committee.
Oh, that's fine.
I'm okay with that. That was one of the things I figured if we got some feedback from administration, if they felt like maybe they wanted to move around those positions, I kind of figured we'd hear from you if you wanted that changed.
I guess, well, I think maybe one thing we'll have to provide is that at the time we had director of public safety and now we have police chief and fire chief. So are we suggesting, I guess I'd suggest police chief or designee. Otherwise, it's kind of vague.
It's fine with me. And did you have a second thing?
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. There are some other things I know, and I don't, Ms. Homan, that has reviewed. We've had conversations with the committee, with directors that are all involved. We've met with Rich on multiple occasions to kind of review it. We've kind of allowed this to be more flexible because we weren't really certain of the direction. So I appreciate getting more clarity tonight. There were some other things that were mentioned in terms of the previous ordinance as it relates to like backgrounds of applicants and how the police department can't use lien to access those. So I just want to make sure that some of those administrative things that we've identified can be incorporated into the ordinance. We can meet with Rich and have conversations about that, and we can also highlight those to you. Also requiring like a pre-authorization from the state. There are a lot of requirements that are built into our ordinance that if we just require the pre-auth from the state of Michigan, that kind of covers a lot of those bases that we don't necessarily need in our ordinance if we do require that. There are also things from the previous ordinance and in some of the presentations on the proposals tonight that highlight history of litigation, bankruptcy, criminal charges that we don't necessarily have the way as a local government to verify or do like a solid verification for every applicant, especially if it's past 7 years or within the past 7 years or in different states potentially. We're kind of restricted there. And so some of it operationally we'd like to address to present like a sound updated ordinance based on what they've experienced before. But I just want to make sure that we have council support in doing that with a meeting with the city attorney, and we could certainly highlight that in a memo to address why those changes have taken place.
I think that's what I'd like to see. You know, once we have those changes highlighted, either things that can be eliminated because they're covered by the state or things that are administratively not feasible, then I would think we could go line by line through and eliminate or alter whatever is problematic. Mr. Albright?
Mayor, in proposal one, going back to Ms. Walton's point about the committee, proposal one actually sets forth the membership of the committee via ordinance, whereas proposal number two just says that the council by resolution shall establish a committee. Is the council leaning more towards something like policy number, proposal number two, where it just sets forth the committee will be established and the membership will be contained in that resolution? Or is the council more in favor with more like what the medical marijuana review committee consisted of?
I mean, I was fine with either. That was sort of, Ms. Walton, if you thought there should be a change in it, if you were happy with those designees, then I was going to leave it as is in one so that we didn't have to do a separate resolution. Yeah, I guess it just depends on if you found those designees, you know, the ones that you would want on that review committee. So I'm fine with leaving it as is in proposal one.
I agree.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I just have one more, Mayor.
Go ahead.
So one of the things that had come up, and I know there was like a mix of different council members at the time, but one of the things that had come up that wasn't clarified, I mean, I don't know, Rich, if it should be in the ordinance or what have you, but was when the community benefit is to come to fruition and how to guarantee that that happens. And I think some members were surprised that the community benefit that was guaranteed in the application process wouldn't come until profitable, which there was no date for that community benefit. Does the council wish to see something more specific or concrete of when that benefit or the expectation of that community benefit that is included in the application drafted within the ordinance?
Does anyone on council want to respond?
Should we mainly try to figure that out as we go one by one through the application process? I think it's kind of hard to discuss without probably talking about the specific language we have in the application.
I think it might be something to discuss when we're going through basically the individual things in the process. I will say, I think if we are going to include the community benefit requirement, that it should be, there should be some sort of reduction to writing, just because I don't think anyone should, I guess, get points in the competitive process if they're meaningless. That said, I have mixed feelings about whether or not they should even be assessed points for that, because I understand the want to have something in an application process that, hey, if you're gonna open up here, you're also gonna go improve our parks and stuff like that. But then it gets a little bit into that sort of pay-to-play mentality, so I don't necessarily like it to begin with. So I think that's actually something we have to discuss once we're getting to that, the specifics in the review process. I guess is my response to that. Any other clarifications?
No, thank you, Mayor. That
Okay.
provided enough clarification.
And Rich, did you have anything else that you felt you needed more direction for tonight?
No, not at this time. I think that at a later workshop, then we're going to go through the various policies that are going to attach, or the policy that's going to attach to whatever ordinance the council decides to go with, and the scoring criteria that's going to be utilized then. We'll save that for a later date.
Yes, I think so. And how long would administration need to either gather their feedback or, things they thought worked, didn't work? Ms. Walton, or?
We can be prepared whenever you'd like to have it on the meeting. I don't know if you want to do another special meeting or if you'd like it on another regular council meeting, but we can be prepared whenever it's scheduled.
I think I'd like a special meeting, because I think this, especially once we have that feedback, it could be a lengthy discussion.
I think any discussion on this subject ought to be through a special meeting.
Does council want to schedule that now or wait until our next meeting? Or would you
It's fine.
prefer it scheduled now so you have a timeline?
Well, that was one of the things I was going to ask, if we wanted to do it before one of the next regular meetings, just depending on, we have a meeting on the 12th, the 19th of November, and then the following week is Thanksgiving week, so that would be the next off week that we have outside of the election week. So we could do it on the 12th or the 19th, if we wanted to start at 5:30, or we could start at 6, just depending on how much time council feels you would want, or we could do the 26th, but that is the holiday week.
I guess I would prefer the 19th at 5:30.
Yeah, let's keep it at 5:30.
Hour and a half will be enough, just so you know, we're 8 minutes from that right now, just as an idea.
We'll get through what we can.
All right.
All right, do you need a motion to schedule that?
No.
Okay. All right, so with that direction, I don't think we need any motions, correct? Mr. Albright?
Thank you.
All right, any other comments?
One comment. It's quick. We should spell marijuana with a J, not an H. The state uses J, and there's a whole history to it if you want to read about it, but the state uses J now, so.
Oh, did they change it?
Well, when I went to the state's website, they were all J's,
All right,
so.
Seems to fluctuate. We'll make sure that's consistent with state law.
okay. All right, we'll move on to mayor and council reports. Councilman DeMonico.
Nothing really, I guess, just thanks, everybody for coming out and speaking at hearing of the public if you spoke, or just watching if you're just interested in what's going on. I think it goes well when we do a special meeting like this, so we can focus on it and not feel like people are waiting around for 2 hours until the agenda item right after it. That's like, 5 or 10 minutes then. So everyone, I guess, let everyone know that our next meeting will be on the 19th, 19th, at 5:30, if you're interested in showing up again. And yeah, thanks admin, thanks everyone, and vote.
All right. Councilwoman Pashadlik.
I'd like to thank everybody who came out to the art show at the Arts and Cultural Diversity Commission put on. They did a really nice job. It was well-attended. It was really a fun event. I'd like to give a special thank you to our Juanita Walltower for all her assistance. She really did a great job, and she was very kind and patient with everyone with all the work and the load, and it was really, came off very nicely, so I'd like to thank her for all of her hard work and efforts. I'd also like to touch on what Mr. Gruenberg had said at the hearing of the public. Having sat on the board with you, I do know that if there is some impropriety going on, it's dealt with, and it is a very difficult thing when you see things in the paper that aren't necessarily truthful. So I do feel for the current school board. You know, it's very difficult when you face those kinds of situations and negativity. So, you know, I do want to thank you for your service. I know it's not an easy job, but I do commend you for the work that you do. And it's important for our kids and our community, so thank you. And I'm thrilled to hear that the preschool program is doing so well, so that's very good news, very good news. And that's all I have.
All right, Councilman Curley.
Two things. I'm going home disappointed a lot, but that's okay. That's just the way I am. Sometimes I push too hard, but I'm disappointed. I don't know. I don't know what the heck's going on. Didn't get a lot of information from the administration, but the other thing is, Pastor Rush, congratulations again. Our church over in Royal Oak, First Baptist Church, had 175 years last year. And 4 locations it was in Royal Oak. And it's exciting. We had a big party, and it was a Baptist at that time. And if any of you people are Baptist, you know, potluck dinners at a Baptist church is you're not going to go home hungry. I can tell you that. But God bless you, and I hope you are around for the next one.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I'll repeat that. Congratulations. 175 years is quite an accomplishment. So congratulations again to you. I guess sorry if the conversation seemed a little disjointed at points today. I know we, are having this whole discussion openly, so I think as it progresses, it'll come together. But I think that's the cost of having all our discussions openly, is sometimes we're trying to figure out what we're going to do. So I encourage it. Thanks to everyone who came out, and I encourage you to come out to the next one. And with that, go vote, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second that.
All right, please call the roll.
Councilmember Curley.
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico.
Yes.
Mayor Kleinfeld.
Yes.
Councilmember Shadlick.
Yes.
Meeting adjourned at 6:58.
7.